As far as I understand, is that Saudi Arabia just accepted that Iran has taken over Lebanon.
It happened in 2011. To give you an idea, 2010, I was asked by my dear friend, late Omar Suleiman, to set up a big dinner for Saad al-Hariri in Biel. He was the prime minister. He was the nominated prime minister, which I did. In that speech, I said, Mr. Prime Minister, we may disagree in politics, but unless you're going to be building all of these moderate Sunnis as a bridge to bring all the moderate Lebanese together, I don't envy you of what's coming. Nobody understood what I said. 3 months later, he was removed from power. Because the Doha agreement was a very interesting formula. Remember, 2005, Syrians were kicked out. Mm-hmm. It was used by 2009, 2008, for election 2009, to reposition everybody and to minimize the damage that happened in 2005 when the Syrians pulled out. Why? Because all of a sudden, they forced all of the competing factors to be forming one unit again. And they elected Michel Sleiman, if you recall, in 2008. So, when you look at all of this, okay, it means Hezbollah at that time realized that I won, you lost. When Hariri stepped down, or he was, the vote of confidence after the resignation of the 11 members of the parliament, of the cabinet in 2000, in December 2010, when Prime Minister Hariri arrived at the White House gate as a prime minister. By the time he went to in the Oval Office, he was an ex-prime minister. Saudi Arabia pulled out. From 2011 until 2016, effectively Saudi Arabia pulled out of Lebanon. You see, nature is against vacuum. Somebody had to step in. And Iran was there. All what they have to move, just move from one building to the other, from one street to the other. The other thing which we had is very interesting observation. Saudi Arabia, in a part of the Taif agreement, there was 3 major players on the ground. Forget about the international global players. There was Syria, Iran, and Saudi Arabia in '92, when the first government was formed. Saudi Arabia, with the Prime Minister Hariri, decided to go for the development and projects. Nabi Berri, Prime Speaker of the House, with the Syrians, they decided to build the institution of government from the doorman all the way up. And Hezbollah, with Iran, the so-called resistance. So it was the resistance, the institution, and the development. As long as there was this modus vivendi, because everybody was hoping, if you recall, we in the U.S. Middle East Project, in the Council of Foreign Affairs, we were working on the peace settlement here. Everybody thought that after the Oslo Agreement and after the Wadi Araba Agreement, okay, Lebanon was going to be next. Okay, then the assassination of Prime Minister Rabin took place, and we all knew that the whole thing collapsed. Now, until 1995, 1996, it was very clear that this formula worked. After '96, in preparation for the elections of the president into '98, if you recall, when President Lahoud was elected, obviously the 3 region players, each one are saying, "I'm not too happy anymore with this formula. Let me see if I can pull that carpet to my side more than anywhere else," and that was the beginning of the collapse of Lebanon. Because what happened there, okay, is that Rafi al-Hariri was a big man, 1 ton. Sitting on this carpet, and nobody can pull him one way or the other. After Hariri, we had prime ministers that are between 50 to 100 kilos. So with Hassan Nasrallah's size, he was able to pull that carpet, because remember, this is a sectarian system. So it means each one of these sectarian groups will attempt to control the country. Now, if you had a political balance on the other side that could say no, then that would have been more difficult. But when we ended up with politicians that they are more interested to get the contracts and the money for their side of the deal, Hezbollah was smart. They said, "You take the money, I will control the country." 2010, after these famous, when the king, if you recall, in 29 October, I think they arrived. From the airport to the presidential palace, to Hariri's house, to the airport, there were not 10 people saying, "Thank you, Saudi Arabia, for all the work that you have done." Few weeks later, Ahmadinejad comes in. 300,000 people lined the road from the airport to his hotel and spent 3 days. And he went and, he smoked argili, and he done all of these things. Okay. At that time, I remember I met with, Prince Turk al-Faisal, his close friend, And so I met to see His Highness Prince Saud. And I said, Your Royal Highness, as an observer, forget that I'm a Lebanese, as an observer, you and Iran invested in Lebanon from 1982, actually from 1984, and that's when Iran started coming in. 2005, Hariri was assassinated, and the whole Saudi project collapsed because you invested into individuals. 2006, we had war with Israel, and they were able in 3 years to reconstitute their establishment because they invested into establishments, not into individuals. Now, if I were to be watching, I would say whose investment succeeded and who's not. So there is an acceptance from 2011 that Iran is dominating Lebanon. Now, for me as a Lebanese, do I accept that and do nothing about it? Or I should try to balance it? We will never be able to turn the things around, and we shouldn't, because at the end of the day, the Shiites, Hezbollah, Harakat Amal, and the politically associated Shiites, they represent about 33% of the people. So we need to be working with them, because Lebanon was created based on a coexistence, on a dialogue. The problem, our politicians, they talk about dialogue, but really there is no dialogue. It's the dialogue of death, because nobody hears what everybody is saying. And now, you're going to convince me that President Macron is going to take the French citizens' money, tax money, to give it to a corrupted government in Lebanon, in Paris 4, which we did not deliver on any of our promises in Paris 2 and Paris 3. Come on, we all know that. Plus, since when a government, European government, sitting on the Security Council, would agree to host such a project 3 weeks before elections? Unless this is a political stunt in order to float the Prime Minister and his cabinet. Mm-hmm. Plus, the big show that you've seen down on the waterfront 2 days ago. This is another one. Now, do I see it will change the impact? I think people, not all of them, but a big chunk of them, they started realizing facts, which means that either they're going to go and change or they're going to refrain and abstain from voting.